Hi, let's see, this is October 4th, and Bob Herzog is on camera, Cheryl Revkin doing the interview, little Enzo, who is how old?
She is 3 months old today.
3 months old, and the mom, Jenna Didier. Didier, yes? Do you know that?
Didier.
Didier.
Yeah.
3 months old today. Well, speaking of monumental dates, this is kind of a special year for materials and applications.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me about that?
Well, we're coming up on our 10th anniversary. What do you want me to look? Do you want me to look?
At me, it's
At
fine,
you.
and yeah.
Right. So we're coming up on our 10th anniversary of having our nonprofit center here in Silver Lake.
Why don't you tell us what it is?
Materials and Applications
Mhm.
is a nonprofit organization focused on architecture and landscape research, which means that we have for 10 years been experimenting outside in a semi-public area. We kind of consider it a pocket park that's open to the public, with various techniques and materials, and all with the goal of bringing international caliber talent, up-and-coming architects and designers into Silver Lake to build constructions they couldn't build anywhere else with the assistance of the community. The goal being to not only show these just, cutting-edge constructions, but also to invite the public into the process so that it demystifies it and people realize that that architecture and design is for everyone.
Oh, that's great. So let's go back to the beginning, because I do feel like you're a cutting-edge thinker, and you've created this really wonderful foundation and organization. Would you call it a foundation?
It's not a foundation yet. It's a nonprofit, and it's a research center. Someday maybe it'll be a foundation. If it lives on beyond me.
Where were you born?
I was born in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Oh.
Yeah.
And what? And do you want to hold her?
Yeah, I can hold her.
Okay. Bob?
Give me a little.
You want to?
Give me a
So you were born in Fond du Lac, and you were raised there?
I was raised in Rochester, Minnesota.
Why did the family move?
Well, my mother actually grew up in Rochester, and my father is a physician at the Mayo Clinic. And so that's where I grew up there. It's an international community of the best and the brightest in the medical profession, and small town, but with an international scope, you could say.
And you said you learned French?
Yes.
Did your family move to France?
No.
You just learned it.
It was a priority of my parents to have me learn another language. And so when I was about 8 years old, I started taking French lessons with one of my best childhood friends. And I became a real Francophile when I was a little kid. And it's just something that I always stuck with.
And you have one sister?
I have one sister who lives in town. She and I are very close. We're both raised together in Rochester. And then because we come from a modern family with multiple marriages, I actually have 10 siblings.
Oh, wow.
Of various degrees of separation.
So you were pretty much educated in the Midwest through high school?
Yeah, through high school.
And then where did you go to college?
I hit 3 Big Ten universities before I graduated from the University of Minnesota. I also went to the University of Wisconsin and the University of Michigan.
What did you major in?
I majored in, I ultimately, after taking anthropology and sculpture, and focusing on critical studies, I ultimately majored in architecture and spatial theory. So I did take I was a little bit involved in the architecture school, but I did some graduate level coursework in critical studies, which dates me, but my main focus at the time were the writings of Deleuze and Guattari, a little bit of Foucault and Lacan, which in that era, in the early 90s, the focus was public space and how public space affects the way we think about ourselves and how public space affects the way we actually take the energy and the power that we have and use it or don't use it because of maybe the restrictions or the
Inhibitions, maybe.
the inefficiency that's already built into the built environment, and then how we ourselves build our environment to reflect our belief systems.
So that was undergraduate work?
That was undergraduate, a little bit of graduate work, but I didn't get a graduate degree.
Oh, I see.
A little bit of that. But so for me, that's what parlayed. When I had the opportunity 10 years out of school to purchase this property and start a business, I started the fountain business because that was my basic skill set, that and metalworking. And yet I knew that I didn't want to do just fountains, and that my real passion was public space and working with different disciplines to create new scenarios for the built environment.
So you're kind of 10 years out of school before you purchased this building.
Yeah.
And what did you do during that period?
I did various things. I worked in the fountain industry in Minneapolis as a metal worker, and then later as a designer. And a very small company, which was fantastic. They gave me a lot of latitude to build my skills, and a lot of great projects to just all different scales. And worked a lot with architects through that job.
And would you say you were a water engineer?
Yeah. It's like a water design engineer. Definitely my math chops were never very good. But the funny thing about engineering that you don't know is that once you get to a certain point, you're actually using charts most of the time.
Right.
And formula, and I can memorize things, so I memorized all the formulas, so that I can do.
Right. So, would you say that they maybe recognized your creative skills when you worked with them?
No.
And kind of fostered them a bit, maybe encouraged them?
Yeah, definitely. What they recognized was just that I really stuck to the tasks at hand. Getting good Midwesterner.
That work ethic.
That work ethic. I really had a lot of follow through, and I'd do what I say I was going to do, and
that you were stimulated by it.
Yeah, and I was very stimulated by it, very hungry. Not shy of power tools, not shy of learning to weld. So I learned all the skill sets necessary for metal fabrication and underwater electronics and programming, large programmed fountain effects. And it was great training. For me, I thought of them as machines that get inserted in the landscape. So I was very interested in machine art at the time.
I see. This was all in the 90s?
All in the 90s. And by the mid-90s, I kind of had my fill of fountains for the time being, and moved to San Francisco to get involved in the machine art scene. And so I worked with Chico McMurtry and the Amorphic Robot Works, and was a welder for them and a technician for a couple of years, and built art robots, artistic, robotic installations that we then took on the road in Europe.
So you read about him and wanted to work for him, or he?
Yeah, well,
How did you attach yourself there?
yeah, in the 90s there was this whole machine art scene that was very focused on robotics and on effects, and some of it informed by Hollywood and the special effects industry, and also a lot of it informed by the cast-offs of military technology and aerospace in California. It was all happening in California, and almost all of it happening up in San Francisco.
So how did
I was
you get
fascinated by it.
Yeah.
So I moved to San Francisco knowing it was there. I think I heard about it at first when I was still in school. Someone sent me a videotape of an SRL show, a Survival Research Laboratory show, and I was just completely hooked, completely fascinated by it. And so when I got to San Francisco, I guess, it's kind of through my grandfather. My grandfather taught me to always get involved in the community. It's because of him that I joined the Chamber of Commerce here. And I just found out where the next robotic art show was going to be. It happened to be in the paper, and I volunteered to assist through the gallery, actually, where they were doing a show.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot where people, kind of are very attracted to something that's happening, and they start maybe as a volunteer.
Yeah.
And then kind of learn the ropes, or maybe start to understand what the scene is, and then try to move in and get a paying job, would you say?
That's right.
That kind of happened to you?
Absolutely, that's what happened to me. And it's through that experience that, that's how we do things here at M&A too. People come and volunteer for us, and they can come and volunteer for a day or a couple hours or a weekend, or they can come and volunteer for months and months. We've had people come and work with us for years.
And you have a lot of respect for those people, and try to find out who they are and how they can learn from you, and what they can add.
We want to know what their interests are, so that we can, because we have there's so many facets to what we do, which is great, so that when people come in and they want to learn things, we find out what they want to learn, and we can generally, put them in, give them tasks, integrate them into tasks that they're going to get something out of it. And we understand, and having Oliver and I both come from that background of
Should probably explain who Oliver is.
Yes, Oliver Hess is the co-director of M&A. He came to the neighborhood in 2004. Or actually, he came to the neighborhood in 2003, and he was sort of around on the scene for about a year.
As a volunteer?
He was working with a friend around the corner, and assisted that friend with a show here, and then he started volunteering. He didn't start volunteering until we became kind of romantically involved, and then everything just cascaded from there. We just became almost instantly involved in everything that each other was doing.
So you sort of recognized in each other that you were on the same wavelength and had the same energy for creativity?
That's
maybe?
right.
Yeah.
Had complementary skill sets, and both of us loved to work.
And then there was the sex, of course.
Yeah, there was that. But that came much later. I was not thrilled by Oliver Hess when I first met him. For the whole first year he was around, I kind of thought he was a jerk.
And then, we haven't really established that you married him, right? And he's the father of Enzo?
That's right.
And their daughter,
Right. Enzo.
I just want to go back to San Francisco for a minute. So, you worked up there for quite a while, like
just
almost
a couple of years.
Oh, a couple of years.
Yeah, just a couple of years.
And did you have your eye on Los Angeles, or what was the next step?
Well, coming from the Midwest, and I'm sure you've heard this from other Midwesterners, the thought of Los Angeles is really intimidating. And I had visited a couple times, and I loved it. But it was really intimidating to imagine living and working here. And it wasn't until friends in San Francisco who had jobs, because I wasn't making any money. I was doing these robotic art shows, but it was not a paying, they would sometimes pay my rent, but it was not, making a living by any stretch of the imagination. I was just tearing around on my motorcycle and living in a garage that I'd converted, and it's a big garage. It was like a big
like a studio space.
big lofted studio space that I converted for like 3 trucks. It was like a big truck garage, truck maintenance, but I was definitely not making ends meet per se. So my friends up there who were in the scenic effect industry said, "Listen, kid, you gotta just suck it up and go to Los Angeles and
Bite the bullet.
bite the bullet and get some chops and get a good reputation going down there, and then you can come back up to San Francisco where the scene is, and the opportunities are much fewer, the scene is much smaller, and after 10 years or so, you can come back and you probably can get some work." Wow. By the time 10 years had passed, M&A was pumping and growing, and my art career here was burgeoning, and I'd met Oliver, and the Silver Lake community had embraced us, and I just had found so many opportunities here. I can't imagine going back to San Francisco.
Yeah, I guess we'd like to know why you picked Silver Lake, and were you looking for a building here, or you just saw this building? And
No, none
what
of that.
happened?
Well, I moved to Silver Lake and moved into a rental property down the street on Silver Lake Boulevard. And at the time I was married to a Frenchman who came from Paris and who had been in a rock band and was very much wanting to be involved in the music scene still. And he was like me at the time. We both were very much in transition, didn't know exactly what we wanted to do with the rest of our lives. But we knew what we liked, and we knew that we really liked music. And I knew that I really liked robotics and special effects. And so he kind of chose Silver Lake because he wanted to be close to Spaceland.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So we came to Silver Lake, and I wanted to be by the ocean. I wanted to surf. That was my thing. But I liked music too, and I certainly understood the usefulness of being right next to Spaceland. So we moved into a place that was, walking distance to Spaceland, and then later the Silver Lake Lounge became more of a venue too. And so that was, for years, I would go to Spaceland 3 or 4 times a week.
Wow. This is the late 90s now?
This is the late 90s. We moved here in '98.
I see.
Yeah.
And how were you able to buy a building?
Well, I started working. I got my first real job at a fountain company in Irvine. Yeah, and I would commute down to Irvine. Oh, by any means possible. For a while I was driving. For a while I was driving my motorcycle down there, and then I gave that up and started riding this little Geo Metro, and then I gave that up because it was killing my health. Hour and a half down and back every day. Both ways an hour and a half, and so then I started taking the train, and finally I got a job in North Hollywood at a architectural scenery company doing project management, and making, for me, a lot of money. I was making $40,000 a year plus benefits and the 401k and everything.
That's a big step.
It was a huge step. It was a huge step. And we were only paying $800 a month for the apartment down the street and renting out the lower house. So we were only really paying $400 a month. So I had all that extra income, and I didn't want to squander it. I wanted to sock it away. So I started socking it away in savings, and it was 1999 when I started. I was about to turn 30, and I just got this bug that I just wanted to. I didn't want to give my money away to a landlord anymore. That I wanted my own place. I wanted to start building my own equity and building my own future. And I got a bug in a lot of ways at that point. I stopped wanting to go out to shows, stopped wanting to party so much, and I wanted to become more engaged in the Silver Lake community. I wanted to start building something that was going to have a positive effect and be meaningful to the community, and it would tap back into my original interests in public space and in
your family being involved in your grandfather being involved in his community.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's sort of your foundation then helped you maybe have a bigger vision in a way. I mean, it seemed like the light bulb went on at a few different stages in your life, and maybe your parenting helped you, do you think, with that, and helped you tune into yourself and realize when you were ready for the next step or the next phase of your life?
Yeah, that's a really good insight, Cheryl. I think so. You know, my mother had always told me I could do anything I wanted to do. Like,
Really?
I had the capability to do anything I wanted to do if I just put my mind to it.
You remember her saying that to you?
Oh, absolutely. And I remember, and multiple times, and I believed her. And you know,
yeah, it was genuine. I mean, she really could see that in you.
Yeah, and I believed her, and I had seen it come true. I had seen myself go from, you know, kind of a clueless college kid to becoming a very good metal fabricator and welder.
Exactly.
And I knew that, so I knew I had that capacity to take on new interests and skills and master them. And so it was a little daunting to, you know, become a project manager. I knew nothing about project management.
But they hired you. I mean,
Yeah,
they
they
must
hired
have
me.
seen something in you.
I saw something, you know, I think a lot of it, you know, when you're, I'm not sure if this is just something that you have to do when you're young or something that you do when you're a woman, but there's a certain amount of what I would call self-optimism or like optimistic positioning in your resume. You're not necessarily, you know, you're not fabricating anything, but you're just very good at putting your best foot forward and showing, you know, anticipating what skill sets and what an employer is looking for. And to get that position, I kind of nailed it because I'd been holding a management position at the fountain company, so that helped.
Yeah, I see. So when you bought the building, what kind of vision did you have then? Did you buy it because there was this outdoor space?
Yeah.
And you knew you wanted to make it a public space or semi-public?
Something, yeah.
Oh, you did something?
Something. I knew something was supposed to happen here. I found this property, and it was before the whole boom started happening in Silver Lake. This was still actually a pretty blighted little stretch, or at least funky.
And my office is here.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So I know.
Funky in a good way, but you know, funky.
Absolutely.
And this was really ugly. It had a chain link fence and just concrete from the front door all the way to the gate. Just and a blast furnace. There was no stand of bamboo. There was no shade. It was just.
So you had to have a vision, really,
yeah,
of what you wanted it to be, and you lived here.
Yeah, we
you
moved
and your
right in.
husband,
Me and my
right?
husband and my sister.
Oh, your sister lived here.
Yeah, she helped. If it hadn't been for her, we wouldn't have been able to make the leap. The first year she was here, helping us to pay the mortgage.
Because you're just getting tired.
Probably
Do you want to assist off the camera, or do you want to feed her?
No, either way, we can take a pause if you want to.
Or you can feed her on camera and talk. I don't know. It's up to you. It's really up to you.
Yeah, either way.
Why don't we stop for a flight?
It's good.
Camera's very sensitive.
Okay, great. So we'll just note that Enzo is having lunch maybe right now. Okay.
Shrouded into the shawl there.
So I do remember Fountainhead as being your business, and do you still have that business?
Barely.
Right. And then
Vaughn really dropped out of the construction industry, so Fountainhead doesn't get very many inquiries.
And then did you start working at SciArc then, teaching, or what was your kind of next step to establish materials and application?
Yeah, well, if you build it, they will come. And, you know, it's all about location. Location. Those are the top three things. And that's what being right here, what I consider to be the heart of Silver Lake, has provided for materials and applications is a fantastic location where there's pedestrian traffic, which is so rare in LA, as well as this great kind of, I think most people on this boulevard hate it, but I love the afternoon stop and go traffic because it pulses an audience past our gate. And when I designed the courtyard and the gate and fountain and border, the courtyard on the sidewalk side, I designed it so that there was an incision, a slot, so that it was right at driver height. So as cars went by, they could peer into the courtyard even if the gate was closed and see what was going on at any point of the year. So that's what that is. That's why that incision is at that level.
And I guess, my earliest memories were that, and you probably go back before that, is that you were interested in taking ordinary materials and applying them, brainstorming to apply them in different sort of ways. So, the idea of reusing was sort of one of the tenets of materials and applications, would you say? Yeah.
Definitely.
And there were a lot of great events here, weaving, plastic bags to make a shelter and things. But am I skipping anything in between buying the building, having Fountainhead, and then having workshops like that? Or?
Yeah. Well, the thing that marked the opening of materials and applications, because I don't teach. I give lectures and I am occasionally invited to speak at universities or to attend critiques at architecture schools. But what launched M&A was this vision that I had to do a reverse unveiling of the building, sort of in an homage to Christo and Jean-Claude.
Explain that, a reverse unveiling.
Yeah, well, the building itself was very plain, and I wanted to be able to announce to the neighborhood that something special was going to be happening here. And I was ready finally to open up M&A as sort of this center for material and technique exploration for the built environment. And so myself and a couple of friends draped the whole building in 4-way stretch white lycra, and then carved that lycra by popping it out with rods of fiberglass to create an undulating facade, so that the whole front of the building was transformed. It looked like a glacier in a funny way. And then we had a big party and rented some jackhammers, and people wore earplugs and eye protection, and we jackhammered the driveway and drank a lot of beer. I think there was a DJ, and I think a lot of people came, actually. I remember it just being, there was maybe a DJ on the roof. I remember it being pretty a pretty over-scale party for this space. And that was the beginning, and it was really because of Marcelo Spina, who now teaches at SciArc, and actually was teaching at SciArc even then, who saw what we were doing. So he saw that, and he saw another installation that I hosted here, and then I wanted to do the courtyard renovation, and it was just then that Marcelo Spina came to me, and he had an idea for what he would do in the courtyard, and we didn't have any funding. We didn't have, we had no idea how to do press releases. We had no exposure. I mean, aside from our neighbors, nobody knew what we were doing here. Even our neighbors were totally mystified about what it was we were doing here. And so that was 2003 when Marcelo Spina did his piece here, and we opened up the courtyard, and it's newly renovated.
So you've had many different installations here.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me that it started kind of with local people, and then it expanded internationally, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think that happened? That it moved from renovating the building to local installations to now international reputation and.
I think in 2005 we started to get a lot of press. We had a great show with Benjamin Ball and Gaston Noguez, and they did that beautiful golden funnel.
The Mylar Lotus, right?
Yeah, the Mylar Lotus.
It made the New York Times.
Made the New York Times, and it really put us on the map. And I thought that everything would sort of flow naturally and easily from there. I thought, oh great, now we'll be able to get funding. Now we'll be able to get a really strong board of directors and really, none of that's come easily. But what has come is what's been, more important to me anyway, which is, yes, to have that international reach and to have that expanding network of practitioners and thinker builders who come and visit and then propose pieces. We'll put out call for proposals on Archinect, which is it's an international on-site social networking kind of industry media site online. And that has helped. But I think more than anything, it's that I have had an international, even when I was in my 20s, I've had international sensibility, and so I have friends in other parts of the world, and those friends knew what I was doing, would send people our way.
Nice.
They would point back towards us whenever they'd meet someone who seemed to be a sympathetic soul, whose practice was
a like-minded thinker.
a like-minded thinker.
Yeah.
They would send. So Anya Franka came to us that way from Denmark. A friend of ours from London just happened to be bicycling through Denmark this summer, that she was doing architectural installations in her yard. So he knew that we had to be put in touch with each other somehow, and that's been a very fertile exchange.
And then also you've gotten commissions, right, now, quite a lot,
Yeah.
to do public art and to do private, what would you say, sculpt, or,
Yeah,
what would you call your private commissions, I guess?
we do, it's all public art commissions right now. So
Oh,
it's
it is?
all of our clients right now, and this has taken up the slack from the fountain industry caving in, is the public art practice has really taken off in the past few years, and our clients are the City of LA, the County of LA, the City of Denver, and a hospital in Ventura.
Really?
Yeah.
What are you doing there?
We are doing the design for the entry plaza for a new hospital, including an amphitheater, a fountain, and and sculptural seating areas.
So, I mean, do you, with those kinds of commissions, do you feel like you've achieved a goal, or, I mean, that must feel good to
It
put
feels
everything
great.
together.
No, it does.
And
It
get a
feels
huge
great.
commission like that, that's
Yeah.
very creative and
No,
open.
it is. It's a dream come true, and it's interesting because I really came at it from such a backwards way. I mean, now kids can go to school and they can study robotics and art, and they can study interactive design, and they can study public art. But those are majors that exist, but when I was in school, those did not exist, and yet I knew I wanted to do public art, and yet I also knew that I didn't want to go about it by being a gallery-based artist. I've always rejected the gallery-based practice.
To combine. When you were talking about the Ventura project,
Yeah.
how many people do you have working on that?
The contract hasn't been turned on yet, so
How
right
many
now,
people do you
0
think?
people.
It's two. Well, the two of
It's
them.
just Oliver and myself right now. When we're up into the thick of our projects, when we have, like for example, all of last year when we were doing the 101 Gateway, we were working on the Fire Station 94 Commission, and the Denver Parkfield project in Wilmington. We had one full-time employee. We had a part-time employee paid for by the city for materials and applications. And then we had several part-time employees and interns who would kind of be switch hitters for us. And that's kind of the fun thing about working for M&A is if you're working for M&A and you show that you have capacity to do more, or you have an interest to do more than what M&A is offering, then oftentimes DDA Hess has a paid project that's happening, and we like to hire from our pool of
Yes.
interns and
People they all
volunteers.
know.
And people have been, demonstrating to us for a while that they're, they have the capabilities.
So So it seems like you have to really be on your toes and think of what, maybe explore what's out there, what commissions are out there, and think how you could, maybe how materials and applications in Didier House can do it. And then you probably created a portfolio and a CV, I guess of some kind, that kind of puts you there, and then it must evolve and just keep changing.
Yeah, it keeps changing and evolving, and the network knows there are a few places to go to look at what requests for qualifications are out there, and then you submit your RFQ, where your qualifications you submit, just as you say, your portfolio, your CV, usually a letter of interest, which we've gotten very good at honing.
I see.
And yet, it's a catch-22 with public art. You have to have done public art pieces in order to win public art pieces, and that was what, for me, we did. Although most of the time we're hosting installations here at M&A, because a lot of the early projects were just paid for out of my pocket, and we'd split the expenses with the incoming design team. There were a couple instances where we had Oliver and I had ideas that we wanted to try out, and no one had come forward with a proposal that was viable, and so then we would go ahead and do an installation here. And those helped build our own portfolio.
Yes, exactly.
And also helped us build, test out some ideas. Because it's a funny organization. I think ultimately what's going to happen is myself as a founder, and Oliver too as someone who's here very early on, if M&A is going to exist beyond us, we have to step away and allow it to grow beyond us. That's how an organization keeps going, is the founders, strengthen the organization and they hand on the baton.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we've been preparing for that moment too.
Maybe as some words of inspiration to other women. How did you see having a baby sort of in this whole process? Because in a way you've kind of reached a pinnacle, and having a baby, is another project
it is another
to manage
project.
that kind of takes you away to some extent.
Definitely does. Definitely does, and gratefully. I mean, it's a funny thing because I'm going to compare my baby to 9/11 now. That's great, but in fact, in 2001, when the buildings came down, I was still working for the scenic fabrication shop in North Hollywood as a project manager, and I got laid off because my two main jobs were Universal Studios and Disney. Both in Japan, and all of the theme parks closed down for a time, and all the projects were just put on hold, and they couldn't afford to keep me because the cash flow just stopped. So I got laid off, and that was terrifying because I had just purchased this building the year before, and I didn't feel like I was ready to take off on my own and start doing things that I just kind of dreamt about doing with the courtyard and creating an architectural research center, but it turned out to be the best thing that had ever happened to me.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, because I was given, I had unemployment insurance through, a wonderful social program, and that helped keep the gap from widening too much, and I was able then to start Fountainhead and to start M&A simultaneously, and to follow my dream, and to be brave, and to take hold of what I wanted to do rather than what I had been doing, which was just being too afraid to let go of that $40,000 a year paycheck. I don't know if I would have ever it would have taken a lot more for me to let go of that and just start. And so that was one of the best things that have happened to me. And now with the baby, it's a similar thing. I really do feel like you've read the situation well, where I feel like we have accomplished so much of what I set out to do with M&A, and the door now is opened for for getting public art commissions, which is a dream come true for me. It's something that I've wanted to do since I was a kid, is design, do art projects in the public space. And now in a way I'm ready to not focus on myself so much. It really took a lot, like the past decade, lot of long hours just with myself, and in the past several years with Oliver now, focused on our own work and working around the clock and working every day of the week. And there's a lot more out there than that. It's a whole big wide world out there that in order to create the momentum that what was required to create M&A and its presence internationally took an immense amount of energy and focus, and now I'm ready to focus on other things and to explore the world again.
Right. And having a baby, opens up another whole part of your brain, I think, and realizing, that you have, I guess, what I want to say is, I'm sure you're thinking about how to be a good parent to Enzo, so that she then can do the kind of, actualize herself in the way you feel like you've actualized yourself.
And it's about, making sure she hears and believes that she can do anything she wants to in her life. And then giving her as many of the tools as she wants to take on to do that.
So she has good role models.
And I think part of being a good role model, and this is something that I came to during the pregnancy, was is being happy. Is chasing your dream, but not letting that dream, not letting it become the dragon chasing its own tail.
That's a great point,
Is that you have to, through that, you can convince yourself that you're happy because you are doing what you love, but in fact, doing too much of what you love, it can tend to wear you down. And so I've really begun to think about, and have begun transforming my own life now, so that she can see how do you do that? How do you do what you love and love your life and have a life outside of what you love?
Really being happy.
And really being happy. And really allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Allowing yourself, it took a lot to get this going, and at some points, especially in the past 10 years, I kind of I no longer valued the vulnerable side of me. I think I still relied a lot on intuition in order to position ourselves to take advantage of opportunities sometimes, but I think I forgot about what it is to be vulnerable and what it is to be, I don't know, I think I've always had a big heart, but just to be even more open and responsive. So because it's time to slow down a little bit. We were going so quickly and had to just, every moment seemed so crammed and so critical. And now it's great.
She cruise a little.
We can't really. Well, it's funny because with the recession, we're in the worst financial straits that we've ever been in, ever. And it's just so ironic that now, of course, now we have a child. when we would rather really be much more stable, but
well, I think it might be valuable to write about your life at some point, because I think you have a lot to say that's important to people, and I think especially to other women. It's great, really.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to say? I know you've always really loved Silver Lake, and I don't know if there's maybe another sentence or two you want to say about that.
Well, the thing about Silver Lake is, the thing about Silver Lake is that it is in a community and a culture that embraces creativity, embraces people who come with something to offer, and they're open to that. I had this big fear when I opened M&A that it would just be rejected. And I got over that fear by just saying, if it's rejected and nobody supports it, then that's what it is. Whether it's either people value it and help to maintain its existence, or it caves in and it disappears, and then I figure out something else to do. So I helped myself get over that fear, but in fact, I really felt like I have had a lot of support here.
Yeah, I mean, everything's blossomed. I mean, and I absolutely want to say, I mean, you're a big part of that. I mean, you put Silver Lake on the map in your own way. I think Spaceland did in some ways, and
too.
Sunset Junction did in some ways, but you're equal to all of those earmarks, I think. Right? So.
And I guess, you know, and part of what inspired our slogan, "Let's build something beautiful," was, you know, Silver Lake. It's all about like the let's build something beautiful. It's all about like knowing that there are people here that have that same creative urge, and it's just about inviting people in. Just invite people in and see what you can create.
Right.
Well, and so I thank Silver Lake for giving me the opportunity to do that. I don't feel like I could have done it anywhere else.
Oh, I absolutely know the feeling. Really, that's very true.
People ask me. That's the other thing that people have asked me over the years is, could you have done this in any other city? And I've always said no. You know, Silver Lake was really a really special place, and you know, it wouldn't have been the same. It wouldn't have flowed as naturally, I don't think. It would have been a lot more.
It wouldn't have evolved.
It wouldn't have evolved, yeah.
Well, great. Thank you.
Thank
both
you.
of you. All right.
Wonderful interview. Very good, Cheryl.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Jenna.
Here we are on busy Silver Lake Boulevard. Behind me is the address of Jenna Didier, who we just interviewed, 1619 Silver Lake Boulevard. We do a little pan here, the immediate neighborhood. All very familiar to those of us who live here in Silver Lake. Now we're looking east, and now we're about to look south. And here's the front of the building, and Jenna and Cheryl are walking toward me. And this is the house that Jenna built.
Do you want us to say what the address is?
I got it.
Okay, great. Okay. A new installation will start next week here.
Could you back up just a little? Yeah. I want to get the fountain with somebody in it.
Maybe the front of the fountain box?
It's all
I got it. Okay, so that's good.
all right.
Thank you.
Great.